This morning with the promise of 6,000 new jobs in the police, prison service and border agency for armed service veterans.
Well, the party's head of policy, Suzanne Evans, joins us from our central London studio now. Very good morning to you. That is, of course, not the only promise you make. Talk about abolishing inheritance tax altogether, raising the personal allowance as well, and many other different promises. How are you going to pay for it all?
Well, very simply, we're going to look at 4 particular ways to cut spending. First of all, withdrawing from the European Union, we save an immediate 9 billion, or at least 9 billion after 2 years. We have to give 2 years' notice to leave, so 9 billion there. Scrapping the vanity project that is HS2, the high-speed rail link that will benefit very few people and just enable a few commuters to get to Leeds from London 20 minutes earlier, meanwhile tearing up swathes of the countryside in the process. We'll do what the old politicians have not had the courage to do, and that is repeal the Barnett formula and completely replace it with a new way to fund the devolved nations that's based on need. We'll also be looking at cutting the cost of government too and reducing the foreign aid budget. We've heard just this week that a lot of the foreign aid budget is wasted on corruption and crime. So all that adds up to a saving of £32 billion by the end of the next Parliament every year.
You will be spending money as well, because we mentioned already about what you're planning with armed forces. What about the defence budget?
The defence budget, we're absolutely committed to standing by our membership of NATO, which requires us to spend 2% of GDP. And I just want to say, Louise, you know, that we are making these spending pledges.
Which is an increase of how much?
It's an increase of 4 billion over the course of the Parliament. That's what we'll be putting in, 4 billion extra a year by 2020. And I just really must make the point that the manifesto that we're releasing today is the only manifesto that is fully costed and has been independently verified. We have not just come up with these figures ourselves. We've put our spending plans out to an independent economic think tank, the Centre for Economic and Business Research, and they have been through our figures with a fine-tooth comb. And I think it's really fascinating that UKIP, as one of the smaller parties and with the fewest resources, is the only party that has actually put forward a strong, sound financial plan.
OK. You talk about, you are cutting other things. So you say that you've had it independently verified that the numbers match up. The cuts that you will make will also they'll be covered.
Absolutely right. Yes, and alongside our manifesto today, we'll be releasing a 20-page document that has all those financials in them, that has that report. And we really want to put this down as a marker in the sand today and say this should be the gold standard for manifestos for every party going forward. I think the public are sick to death of political parties making promises in their manifesto that they then fail to keep, often because their spending has been so unrealistic. UKIP certainly won't be falling into that ballpark today.
So lots of promises. Let's talk about Nigel Farage as well. He says he'll step down if he loses. Will you replace him?
No, he's not going to lose. And now the manifesto is launched today. It's obviously been a very labour-intensive work for myself and my team, although a very challenging and enjoyable one too. And I will certainly be out making sure he secures that seat. So I want to see Nigel Farage in Parliament. And I think there was one rogue poll, but it's looking like he's going to win, and I can't wait.
Yeah, he himself has talked about it, though, hasn't he? So you must have considered it.
Talked about what? Me replacing him?
No, the possibility that he himself might not win.
Well, he has, but of course, you know, none of us can afford to be complacent in politics, and we have to be realistic about these things. But if the people don't vote for Nigel Farage, you know, he's a very strong, powerful voice for that community. They could not have a better Member of Parliament in the House of Commons. He will rally round, he will fight their cause. He has a big public profile to be able to do a huge amount for Thanet.
You talk about being realistic. Being realistic, you've made these promises that are in your manifesto. Being realistic, how many of them actually are you going to be able to put in place, given the likely amount of MPs you'll have?
Look, I think today our manifesto is as much a campaign document as it is a manifesto for government. We're probably not going to have a majority in Parliament on May the 8th, as much as I might like to. And I think people will be surprised when they look at our manifesto. There's a lot of rubbish talked about UKIP, about what we stand for, about what we believe for. This is a 76-page document today that absolutely nails it down. And I do hope people will read it. It will be online at our website at 12 noon today. And as I say, it will be as much a campaign document as it will a plan for government. And there's a lot in it that I think a lot of people will find very exciting, not least our plans for democracy. We don't have enough democracy. One of the things we want to do is to give the public a referendum every 2 years on the subjects that matter to them most, and they will be enshrined in law in the Queen's speech.
Suzanne
That is a
Evans.
major commitment that the other parties won't go anywhere near.
Suzanne Evans from UKIP, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good